7 things you should never do with your money. You see, wealth building is a very serious journey. It doesn't serve your interest to be doing things that sabotage your effort or delay your progress. That is the essence of this video. Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Obed. Here we talk about personal finance and wealth building. So today we are diving into 7 things you should never do with your money in order not to delay your journey towards wealth building. Now, let's dive in. Number 1, never spend more than you earn. Now, this is one of the most important personal finance rules ever. Now, the truth is, no matter how much you earn, no matter how big it is, if you end up spending more than you earn, you will always struggle financially. This is because your financial margin is the amount of financial cushion you have. That is the difference between your income and your expenses. That margin is what you grow and build until you become wealthy. It is with that margin that you invest it and grow wealth. If there is no financial margin, that means you are not growing in your wealth building journey. And the person who always spends more than he earns is the person who is living above his means. Irrespective of how much you earn, whether you are low income or high income, you need to find a way to live below your means. That means to either reduce your expenses to a level where you don't always spend everything you earn. Now, between two persons earning the same salary, it is the person who spends less that is richer. Either the person has less responsibilities or the person has found a way to spend less money than the money coming in. So it is very crucial to always spend less than you earn, no matter how much you earn. That way, you will have a financial cushion with which you can build wealth and achieve financial independence. The second thing to never do with your money is to never invest in something you do not understand. And this is one of the most important rules of investing. If you cannot explain it, do not invest your money. And if it sounds too good to be true, then it definitely is too good to be true. If you invest in things you don't understand, that is a recipe for financial loss. Because you see, a lot of persons bring so-called investment opportunities with ridiculous returns on investment. They will say, bring this amount, we are going to give you so percentage monthly or yearly, and the percentage is outrageous, but the business is not clear. What exactly do they do with this money and how do they make money? Or it is something totally very complex that you cannot explain it in clear words. If it is something you do not understand, don't bother putting your money, because that is how people lose a lot of money. You see, the truth is, it took you time to accumulate this money that you now have to invest. Do not invest it in something that will risk your capital and you end up losing it and then starting from square zero. Invest in only things you understand, things that you can explain how the money is being spent. There are different types of investing opportunities. Some of them are actually real. However, they are very complex. If they are complex, you have to find a way to learn about it. Don't just invest because other persons are investing or making money from it. First of all, learn about it. Gather information, knowledge about any investment you are interested in. Do not just give your money to someone to invest for you because you think the person is knowledgeable in that aspect. That is one way you can lose your money. So investment is important, but you must invest with knowledge and strategy. Now, the third thing you should never do with your money is to never lend money you can't afford to lose. Now, a lot of persons have been burnt by mixing money with relationships. See, it's good to help people. And of course, what is the essence of making money if you cannot help out your family and friends who are in financial need? But it's always best if you can give them the money without asking them to return. But if you want to lend them the money to pay back later, ensure it is the amount that you can afford to lose. You see, what happens is that life can happen and they may not be able to pay back when due, or they may even become unreasonable and want to take your relationship for granted by refusing to pay entirely. If any of this happens, if it is money you can afford to lose, at least you may decide to forego that money in order to save your relationship. But if it is money that is too much for you to let go, it will definitely affect your relationship. First of all, you may never forgive that person. And in some cases, you may even take action towards recovering that money that will end up damaging that relationship forever. So it's important that when you are lending money to family and friends or to anybody at all, it is money you can afford to lose. Money that once it leaves you, it does not disrupt your financial plan very seriously in a way that if it does not come back, it becomes a major problem. So preserve your relationships and preserve your financial journey. Only lend out money that you can afford to lose. The fourth thing you should never do with money is to never ignore emergency fund. Now, emergency fund is money saved up and kept away where it is reachable in cases of emergencies. Now, the truth is that nobody prays for or plans to have emergencies, but life happens and we need to be prepared for every form of eventuality that life throws at us, especially financially. Emergency fund is one of those things that if you do not have, you may think that you are fine. And then until emergency hits, you will realize that you were not fine financially. Emergencies are unplanned, unwanted financial expenses that come urgently, that must be sorted out one way or the other. For example, a sudden issue with your car for someone who uses the car for business or to and fro for work, or even a health emergency, whether it is for you or your loved ones. You know, health emergencies are one of the most common forms of emergencies that derail people financially and even put them into debt. If a health emergency comes, it must be sorted out. Another very common one is a delay in your salary or even a sudden loss of job or when you are in between jobs. You see, one bad thing about salaries is that not just that people determine how much you earn, but people also determine when you earn. In that way, if someone decides that they are going to pay you late this month, if you do not have any form of financial cushion, you may enter into financial crisis. Or if you end up losing your job for whatever reason, you may end up in financial crisis. So that is the essence of having an emergency fund. It is at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses kept somewhere accessible, such that if any of those events occur, you do not panic and you are not in financial crisis. The thing about emergencies is that they must be sorted out. If you have an emergency without an emergency fund, you will end up, first of all, liquidating any assets you have. Or if you don't have assets to sell off, you may now end up going into debt in order to sort them out. And any of these two things, whether selling off your assets or going into debt, derails and ends up delaying your wealth building journey. But if you had an emergency fund, you would have been prepared for this kind of scenario. So it's important to never joke with an emergency fund if you are beginning to build wealth and desires to achieve financial independence. Now, the fifth thing to never do with your money is to never rely on one income stream. Now, relying on one income source is a financial mistake. It is one that you should never make for someone who is interested in wealth building. The idea of wealth building is to have options and to have a large margin. If you have one income source, It means that if anything happens to it, no matter how wide that source is, you are immediately in financial crisis. And that is not a wise thing to do. So no matter how much you are making from that one income source, it's important that you activate other sources of income, what is called multiple streams of income. And you can do that by either starting a side hustle, maybe another business from what you currently do, or even offering your current skills in freelancing, or even learning new skills. You can also begin to invest this money into other income producing assets like real estate, stocks, and other forms of paper assets. This way, you have money coming in from other sources. You can also set up structures to earn from intellectual properties like writing books or recording music or even registering inventions. Or you can as well set up digital assets such as blogs, YouTube channels, online courses, and ebooks. These and many other ways you can set up multiple streams of income such that you are earning from your salary or your business quite alright, but there are other ways that money is coming into your hand. This is very crucial. Rich people do not have one source of income. In fact, most of them have multiple streams, and all of these streams are contributing to their wealth building journey, such that if anything happens to one stream, they don't go into financial crisis. And the sixth thing to never do with your money is to never leave money sitting idle. Now, if you have some amount of money that you don't plan to use in the short term, it's important that you put it to good use. Either you invest it in an asset that is liquid, that you can quickly get the money back, or you can even put it in high yield savings account. That way you can at least be earning some interest on that money. But you see, leaving money lying idly without doing anything is a recipe for losing that money. First of all, what will happen is that most likely you will spend that money on wants. Something will just come and take away that money, and you will end up asking yourself, what did I do with this money? Another thing that can happen, which is very common, is that inflation will eat away the value of that money. If you leave that money lying in the bank for months or even years, you will come back, and even if the mathematical value of that money is still the same, but the worth of that money has reduced drastically, such that what you could buy with that money months ago, you can no longer afford it with that same money this month. That is the work of inflation. It eats away the value of idle money. So you cannot afford to leave money lying idly. You should at least invest it in something so that it will be earning interest. Better still, interest that is higher than the rate of inflation. But ensure that money is not lying idly, because you either lose it to inflation or you lose it to mindless spending. Now, the seventh thing you should never do with your money is to never give it to lifestyle inflation. What is lifestyle inflation? It is the situation where your expenses are increasing to match up any increase in your income, such that as your income is increasing, your expenses are also increasing to match up with that income. That means that even though you are doing well in the area of your income, but you always quickly increase your expenses. That way, you do not have any financial margin. Take, for example, you just came into some huge amount of money and you quickly upgraded your gadgets, changed your wardrobe, bought a new car, and the rest of it. Or maybe you were just promoted at work and then you quickly changed your accommodation to something bigger and better. Upgrading your lifestyle is a normal and a natural thing to do, especially when you come into higher income brackets and when you make more money. What is, however, wrong and what makes it lifestyle inflation is when your new expenses are matching up your new income. That way, your new expenses has wiped out any gains you made from that new income, such that your financial margin before and after the increase in income are just still the same. You see, your financial margin is that difference between your income and your expenses. So as your income is increasing, your financial margin should also be increasing. So even if you are increasing your income and improving some certain areas of your life, the rise in your expenses should not be equal to the rise in your income. You should increase your expenses strategically and with wisdom, so that you don't put yourself into financial jail. Lifestyle inflation happens to most high income earners and even some rich people. You find out that they are earning very high. However, they do not have any form of financial margin. They are not building wealth because their financial margin is not increasing in proportion to their increase in income. So if you truly want to build wealth, you have to ensure that lifestyle inflation does not catch up with you. Improve your living standards, quite alright, but do not match your increase in income with equal increase in expenses. Ensure that your financial margin is growing, and that way you will keep building wealth and eventually you will achieve financial independence. That is it on the 7 things you should never do with your money if you truly want to build wealth and achieve financial independence. If you love this video, please do like it and subscribe to this channel for more amazing videos on personal finance and wealth building. See you in this next video.